The winter sun hung low over Keswick Valley, casting long shadows across the stone cottages that had stood unchanged for generations. Maya pulled her shawl tighter as she walked the familiar path to the well, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. 23 years she'd lived in this village, and every day felt like the one before. The elders said it was protection, this life of routine, of sameness. The outside world was chaos, they warned, full of false promises and broken hearts. Maya had never questioned it. Not really. How could you miss what you'd never known? But today felt different somehow. Maybe it was the date, December 31st, though in Keswick it meant nothing. Tomorrow would be January 1st, another day to fetch water, tend the gardens, and weave cloth by candlelight. She was lost in thought when she heard it. A voice, unfamiliar and warm, cutting through the silence. "Excuse me, is this Keswick Valley?" Maya spun around. A man stood at the edge of the path, tall and lean, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes that seemed to hold entire worlds within them. He wore clothes unlike anything she'd seen, a thick jacket with strange fastenings, sturdy boots caked with mud from distant roads. "It is," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Strangers were rare here, almost forbidden. The elders would need to know immediately. "Thank God." He smiled, and something fluttered in Maya's chest. "I've been hiking for hours. My name's Julian. I'm a travel photographer, documenting remote communities. Is there somewhere I could rest? Maybe get some water?" Maya hesitated. Protocol demanded she fetch Elder Thompson. But something in Julian's eyes, a kindness, perhaps, or simply exhaustion, made her relent. "There's an inn," she said. "Follow me." As they walked, Julian studied everything with fascination, his fingers occasionally reaching for a camera that hung around his neck. "This place is incredible," he murmured, like stepping back in time. "We prefer tradition here," Maya replied, though even as she said it, something felt hollow about the words. At the inn, old Mrs. Wickham eyed Julian suspiciously, but provided a room. As Maya turned to leave, Julian caught her hand gently. The touch sent electricity through her arm. "Wait," he said. "I noticed the date. Do you celebrate New Year's Eve here?" Maya shook her head. "It's just another night." Julian's expression shifted to something between disbelief and sadness. Just another night? But it's magic. The moment when time itself feels alive, when people come together to let go of the past and embrace possibility. He squeezed her hand slightly. "There's a town celebration in Millbrook, about 10 miles from here. Come with me tonight. Experience it." "I couldn't possibly." "Why not?" His eyes searched hers. "When's the last time you did something just because you wanted to?" Maya opened her mouth to protest, but no words came. Because the truth was, she couldn't remember. Not once in 23 years had she chosen her own path. "I don't even know you," she whispered. "Then tonight could be about getting to know yourself," Julian replied softly. As Maya walked home, her mind raced. The sensible choice was obvious. Forget the stranger and his dangerous ideas. But as twilight descended and she looked at her small cottage, at the life stretching before her in an endless loop of sameness, something rebellious stirred in her heart. Perhaps, just this once, she could choose differently. Maya paced her cottage as darkness fell, her heart hammering against her ribs. Through the window, she could see lights flickering in other homes, families settling in for another ordinary evening. But nothing felt ordinary anymore. She'd laid out her best dress, a simple blue cotton that her mother had made years ago, 3 times now, only to hang it back in the wardrobe. This was madness. The elders would be furious. She'd never defied them, never stepped beyond the invisible boundaries that enclosed Keswick like a cage. But Julian's words echoed in her mind. "When's the last time you did something just because you wanted to?" At 8:30, a soft knock came at her door. Maya's breath caught. She opened it to find Julian, freshly cleaned up, his eyes bright with anticipation, and something else, something that made her skin warm. "I wasn't sure you'd actually consider it," he said quietly. "I shouldn't." But even as Maya spoke, she was reaching for her coat. "If anyone sees us, we'll be careful." Julian held out his hand. I have a car parked beyond the ridge. Trust me. Trust him? She'd known him for mere hours. But when Maya looked into his eyes, she saw something she'd never encountered in Keswick. Genuine interest, not in controlling her but in knowing her. She took his hand. They slipped through the village like shadows, Maya's heart racing with every step. The thrill of it was intoxicating. This small act of rebellion, this choosing of her own path. When they finally reached Julian's car, a laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside her. I've never been in one of these, she admitted as he opened the door. Julian grinned. First time for everything tonight. The drive to Millbrook was a revelation. Julian told her about his travels. Cities that glitter like stars, oceans that stretch to infinity, mountains that touch the sky. Maya listened, hungry for every detail. Every story that proved the world was so much larger than she'd been allowed to imagine. Why Keswick? She asked suddenly. Why photograph our village? Julian was quiet for a moment. Honestly, I was drawn to it. There's something about preserved traditions, about communities that exist outside modern time. He glanced at her. But now I'm wondering if preservation sometimes becomes imprisonment. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. No one had ever spoken her unformed thoughts aloud like that. As they approached Millbrook, the sky began to glow. Streetlights, Julian explained. Something Keswick had always rejected. The town square was already filling with people, their laughter carrying on the cold air. Music played from speakers, a sound system the likes of which Maya had never heard. Julian parked and came around to open her door. As she stepped out, the noise and light and life of it all nearly overwhelmed her. Too much? Julian asked, concern in his voice. Maya shook her head, unable to speak. It wasn't too much. It was everything she'd never known she was missing. They walked through the crowd, Julian's hand finding hers naturally. Vendors sold roasted chestnuts and hot chocolate. Children ran past with sparklers. Everyone seemed to vibrate with excitement, with the promise of something new beginning. It's almost 11, Julian said, checking his watch. We have an hour until midnight. Want to explore. They wandered through the celebration, and Julian bought her hot chocolate that warmed her from the inside out. They stood close together as they drank it, their shoulders touching, and Maya became hyper-aware of every point where their bodies met. Thank you, she whispered, for showing me this. Julian turned to face her fully, his free hand coming up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was intimate, tender. Thank you for trusting me enough to come. In the distance, a band began playing, the music shifting to something slower, more romantic. Around them, couples began to sway together. Dance with me? Julian asked. Maya had never danced. Not like this. Not pressed close to someone, moving to music under the stars. But when Julian pulled her into his arms, her body seemed to know what to do. They moved together, and Maya felt something crack open inside her chest, something that had been locked away for too long. As the song ended, Julian tilted her chin up, his eyes searching hers. Maya, he murmured, and the way he said her name made her breath catch. The crowd around them began to count down. 10, 9, 8. It's almost midnight, Julian said softly. Almost a new year. Almost a new beginning. 7, 6, 5. Maya's heart raced. What happens at midnight? Julian smiled, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Whatever you want to happen. The crowd's excitement built to a fever pitch, voices rising in unison. 4, 3, 2. Maya's entire world had narrowed to this moment. To Julian's eyes locked on hers, to the thundering of her heart, to a feeling so intense it threatened to consume her. 1. Happy New Year. The sky exploded with color. Fireworks burst overhead in cascades of gold and silver, blue and crimson, painting the night with impossible beauty. The crowd erupted in cheers, strangers embracing, lovers kissing, and in the midst of it all, Julian cupped Maya's face in his hands. Happy New Year, Maya, he whispered, and then his lips met hers. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, a question being asked and answered, but as Maya melted into him, As her hands fisted in his jacket and pulled him closer, it deepened. Her first kiss, at midnight on New Year's Eve, with fireworks exploding overhead and the whole world celebrating. It felt like magic, like destiny, like every romantic story she'd never been allowed to read. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Maya laughed, a sound of pure joy she'd never heard herself make. She couldn't find words big enough. Perfect, Julian finished, his forehead resting against hers. You're perfect. They stood wrapped in each other's arms, watching the fireworks paint the sky. Maya felt transformed, as if the old version of herself had been burned away like morning fog, and someone new was emerging. Someone brave, someone alive. Look, someone nearby shouted. A shooting star. Maya's eyes found it. A brilliant streak of light cutting across the sky between the fireworks, there and gone in seconds. Make a wish, Julian urged, his arms tightening around her. Maya closed her eyes. I wish to be free, she thought. I wish to choose my own life. I wish for this feeling to never end. When she opened her eyes, something caught her attention at her feet. A small box, wrapped in silver paper, half buried in the snow that had begun to fall. What's that? Julian asked, noticing her gaze. Maya bent down and picked it up, her hands trembling. There was no tag, no indication of where it had come from. She unwrapped it carefully to find a delicate compass inside, its face gleaming in the streetlight. That's impossible, Julian breathed. That wasn't there a second ago. Maya turned the compass over. On the back, engraved in elegant script, was a single word: choose. She looked up at Julian, then at the celebrating crowd, then at the compass in her palm. This moment, this magical, impossible, perfect moment, was a turning point. She could feel it in her bones. Return to Keswick and pretend this night never happened, or step forward into the unknown. Come with me, Julian said suddenly, as if reading her thoughts. Not forever, not if you don't want to, but come travel with me for a while. See the world. See what life can be. I barely know you, Maya protested weakly. Julian took her hands, compass and all. Then get to know me. But more importantly, get to know yourself, the version of you that exists outside of Keswick's walls. He paused, searching her face. I know I'm being presumptuous. I know this is crazy. But from the moment I saw you this morning, I felt something I've never felt before. Like I was supposed to find you. Like you were supposed to find yourself. Snow began to fall more heavily, dusting their hair and shoulders. Around them, people were dispersing, heading to parties or homes. But Maya and Julian stood frozen in their own moment, teetering on the edge of everything. What if I'm not brave enough? Maya whispered. Julian smiled, wiping a snowflake from her cheek. You're already brave. You came here tonight, didn't you? You kissed a stranger at midnight. You picked up that compass. His voice dropped lower. The question isn't whether you're brave enough. It's whether you want this badly enough. Maya looked down at the compass, its needle pointing steadily north, toward possibility, toward freedom, toward a life she'd never dared to imagine. I do, she said, the words coming from someplace deeper than thought. I want this. I want to see everything. I want to know who I could be. She met his eyes. I want you. The relief and joy that flooded Julian's face made her heart soar. He kissed her again, longer this time, his hands tangling in her hair. This kiss tasted like promise, like new beginnings, like a future being written in real time. When they broke apart, Julian's eyes were dark with desire. I have a hotel room, he said carefully. We could go there, talk more, figure out the logistics of... Yes, Maya interrupted, her boldness surprising them both. As they walked hand in hand through the snowy streets, Maya clutched the mysterious compass. Its weight a reminder that magic was real, that transformation was possible, that midnight on New Year's Eve had indeed changed everything. Julian's hotel room was modest but warm, a stark contrast to the cold night outside. As he closed the door behind them, the sounds of celebration faded, leaving only the quiet intimacy of the space and the pounding of Maya's heart. I can sleep on the couch, Julian said quickly, gesturing to a small love seat by the window. I don't want you to think I brought you here expecting. Maya silenced him by pressing her fingers to his lips. The gesture shocked her as much as it seemed to shock him, but something had awakened inside her tonight, something that refused to be quiet anymore. What if I want expectations? She whispered. Julian's eyes darkened, his breath catching. Maya, we don't have to rush anything. You've already been so brave tonight. I've been asleep for 23 years. Maya's voice was steady despite her trembling hands. I don't want to be careful anymore. I don't want to wait for permission to live my life. She reached up, touching his face. Teach me what I've been missing. Are you sure? Julian's hands found her waist, pulling her closer. Because once we cross this line, I'm sure. And she was more sure than she'd ever been about anything. Julian kissed her then, deeply, his hands sliding up her back as hers tangled in his hair. The kiss from midnight had been sweet discovery. This one was hunger unleashed. Maya gasped as he walked her backward toward the bed. Their bodies pressed together, learning each other's contours. You're shaking, Julian murmured against her lips. I've never. Maya felt heat flood her cheeks. I've never been with anyone. Julian pulled back slightly, his eyes searching hers with such tenderness it made her ache. We can stop. We can take our time. No. Maya's hands found the buttons of his shirt, fumbling with them. I don't want to stop. I just wanted you to know. Julian caught her hands, stilling them. Then let me show you, he said softly. Let me make this perfect for you. He undressed her slowly, reverently, as if unwrapping something precious. Each article of clothing removed felt like shedding an old skin. When Maya stood before him in only her undergarments, she fought the urge to cover herself. You're beautiful, Julian breathed, his hands skimming over her shoulders, her arms, her waist. So incredibly beautiful. He laid her on the bed and kissed her again, his body covering hers, and Maya felt something primal stir inside her. His hands explored with patience, finding places that made her gasp and arch beneath him. Tell me what you like, he murmured against her neck. Tell me what feels good. Maya could barely form words as sensations she'd never experienced overwhelmed her. Everything, she managed. It all feels, Julian, please. He took his time, driving her to heights she'd never imagined existed. When they finally came together, Maya cried out, her nails digging into his shoulders as pleasure and pain and joy all merged into something transcendent. I've got you, Julian whispered, moving slowly, letting her adjust. I've got you. They moved together, finding a rhythm, and Maya understood suddenly why poets wrote about this, why people risked everything for this connection. It wasn't just physical. It was spiritual, emotional, a joining of two souls in the most intimate act possible. When release finally came, Maya shattered into pieces, and Julian's arms held her together as he followed her over the edge. Afterward, they lay tangled together, breathing hard, skin damp with exertion. Julian traced lazy patterns on her back, while Maya's head rested on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. That was... She couldn't finish. I know, Julian said softly, pressing a kiss to her hair. I felt it too. They made love twice more that night, each time slower, more exploratory. Julian showed Maya her own body's capacity for pleasure, teaching her that intimacy could be tender and fierce, playful and profound. Between rounds, they talked in the darkness about dreams, fears, the future that suddenly stretched before them. As dawn began to lighten the sky, Maya stood at the window wrapped in Julian's shirt, watching the world wake up. She felt different, fundamentally changed. The girl who'd walked to the well yesterday morning no longer existed. Julian came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Regrets? He asked quietly. Maya turned in his embrace, looking up at him. None. Not a single one. What about Keswick? Your family? The thought sent a pang through her chest, but it didn't override the certainty she felt. I'll go back today, gather my things, and explain. She took a deep breath. They won't understand, but I have to do this anyway. I'll come with you, Julian offered. Maya shook her head. This is something I need to do alone. But wait for me? Tomorrow morning, Meet me at the ridge where you parked? Julian kissed her forehead. I'll wait as long as you need. Maya returned to Keswick as the sun climbed over the eastern hills, her body still humming with the memory of Julian's touch. She'd expected shame, perhaps, or fear at what she'd done. Instead, she felt powerful, awakened, alive in ways she'd never been before. The village was just stirring, smoke beginning to rise from chimneys. Maya slipped into her cottage and sat at the small table, the mysterious compass before her. In the morning light, she could see tiny engravings around its edge, symbols that looked ancient and meaningful, though she couldn't decipher them. A knock at her door made her jump. Elder Thompson stood there, his expression grave. You were seen leaving the village last night, he said without preamble. With a stranger? Maya's spine straightened. The older would have cowered, apologized, begged forgiveness. The new her, the one who'd watched fireworks explode and felt pleasure she'd never known existed, simply nodded. Where did you go? To Millbrook, to see their New Year celebration. Elder Thompson's face darkened. You know our laws. You know why we maintain separation from the outside world. To protect us. Maya recited the words automatic, to keep us pure and safe. Exactly. And yet you... But who decided that? Maya interrupted, her voice stronger than she'd ever heard it. Who decided that we needed protecting? That we couldn't make our own choices? The founders? People who've been dead for generations. Maya stood, meeting his eyes. I'm 23 years old, and last night was the first time I've ever felt truly alive. How is that protection? It's imprisonment. Elder Thompson's expression hardened. You've been corrupted by that outsider. He's filled your head with dangerous ideas. He showed me that there's a whole world beyond these hills. He showed me that I have choices. Maya picked up the compass. I'm leaving, Elder Thompson. Today, I'm going to see that world for myself. If you leave, you can never return. You know this. The words hit hard, but Maya had expected them. She thought of her parents' graves at the edge of the village, of the few friends she had here, of the familiarity of this place. Leaving meant severing all of it, burning bridges that could never be rebuilt. But staying meant dying slowly, day by day, wonder by wonder. I know, she said quietly. I accept that. Elder Thompson studied her for a long moment. You think you love him, this stranger. But infatuation fades, child. And then where will you be? Alone in a world you don't understand, with no home to return to. Maybe, Maya acknowledged, maybe we'll fade. Maybe I'll struggle. Maybe I'll make mistakes and have regrets. She gripped the compass tighter. But they'll be my mistakes, my regrets, my life to live as I choose. Something flickered in the elder's eyes. Was it respect, understanding, or just resignation? Your grandmother, he said slowly, she tried to leave once, when she was your age. The elders convinced her to stay, told her she was making a mistake. She lived another 50 years here, and not once did I see real joy in her eyes. He sighed heavily. I've often wondered if we were right to keep her. Maya's breath caught. She'd never known this about her grandmother, the quiet woman who'd always seemed sad, even when she smiled. Go, Elder Thompson said suddenly. Pack your things. But know this, you're not the first to feel this pull, and you won't be the last. Maybe it's time we question whether our protection has become a prison. Maya embraced him impulsively, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just live well. Live fully. Prove that leaving was the right choice. She packed quickly. Clothes, a few cherished books, the photograph of her parents. As she took one last look around her cottage, Maya felt equal parts grief and anticipation. This had been her whole world, and now it was just a memory she'd carry forward. The walk to the ridge took an hour. With each step, Maya felt lighter, freer. She found Julian waiting by his car, pacing nervously. When he saw her, relief flooded his face. You came, he breathed. Did you doubt? Maybe a little. He pulled her close, kissing her deeply. Ready for an adventure? Maya looked back at Keswick one last time, the village where she'd been born, where she'd lived a half-life, where she'd finally awakened. Then she turned to face the road ahead, to Julian, to the compass in her pocket that had appeared at midnight like a promise. "I'm ready," she said, as they drove away, the compass warm against her thigh. Maya understood that magic wasn't just about shooting stars and mysterious gifts. It was about the courage to choose yourself, to step into the unknown, to trust that the world was bigger and more beautiful than you'd ever been told. The road stretched ahead, full of possibility. Julian reached over and took her hand, and Maya squeezed back, her heart full of hope. At midnight on New Year's Eve, she'd made a wish for freedom. 24 hours later, she was living it. The countdown had turned her world upside down, but it also set her right side up for the very first time.